Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Sharp Angle show, a production of the Sharp Angle Syndicate. Glad to have everybody in place. Well, almost everybody in place. Me, I'm just Ryan Hyatt. Think of me as Julie, my cruise director. We'll have shuffleboard on the Lido deck later on. Stevie Shrimp, obviously, with us here at Sharp Angle Syndicate. Smitty Bucks has won so much lately, guys. He's in Florida on something he calls a vacation. I'm not really sure what that is and what it entails, but he ain't here tonight. But joining us tonight, the man from VSiN. They list him as a senior producer, but we're hoping someday he graduates. Also show host, the now legendary Kelley Bydlon. How you doing tonight, Kelley?
Doing great, Ryan. Steve, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
We appreciate the time. Steve, did you pickleball today, or was it just too damn hot?
No, I took the day off, Ryan. I hurt my toe Tuesday. My big toe is hurting, and I didn't want to push the issue, so I took the day off.
I didn't even know if you were awake today. I didn't get anything from Saratoga or anything at all, so I was just kind of worried if you'd make the show tonight. Kelley, we wanted to have you on for a while since we started doing this, and we're kind of still feeling our way around on what this show is going to be. But it's definitely not going to be just sitting here shotgunning picks, hour after hour. We want to talk to interesting people, and we couldn't get Will Hill, so we called you, and you were home.
That sounds right.
I think people who listen to VSiN, obviously they hear your voice, they see what you do, but I think they'd be intrigued. How did you end up there? Because it's rare to be a part of something really new and really cutting edge in our industry. VSiN was that going back 5 and 6 years ago. Walk us through a little bit your path out there to the desert in Vegas.
Yeah, no problem. No, it is. It's definitely interesting, in the way the media landscape has just changed in the past, 5 years, 6, 7, 8 years now. Has been really, really a wild ride, and it's been great for me. I've really enjoyed it. But I came out to Vegas 5 years ago, started working with VSiN. That was summer of 2018 is when I started here. Before that, I was in South Florida, working with Good Karma Broadcasting down there for about 10 years before I came out here. Was worked for ESPN West Palm in West Palm Beach, Florida. Was doing some co-hosting radio shows there for several years, normal sports talk radio, and then was producing local sports TV for the local NBC and Fox affiliates. So I was doing a million things there, just like I am here in Vegas for VSiN. But it was, my whole daily life was do a radio show in the afternoon, produce local sports on TV at night, and then gamble like a degenerate around the clock. So it was obviously something I was always intrigued to getting into sports betting content as soon as possible. And I think that they're, Brian and Brent Musburger and the people at VSiN that started everything, felt that wave of content and the desire for it, before pretty much anyone else. And that's what I was looking for, those people of who could I join that was going to be doing that type of content. Because that was the only content I wanted to do anymore. Luckily I was able to know Brent Musburger a little bit down in South Florida. He had a house down there. We lived down there for a lot of years. I'd met him a couple times. It's not how I got the job or anything like that, but I think when you guys know this too, but when you work in sports media, you meet a lot of media figures, and some of them maybe don't live up to the hype. Some of them are so much more humble and amazing than you ever would have thought. That was Brent Musburger, and that always stuck with me. The second part, he was that guy who wanted to. I'll never forget interviewing him when I was like 23 years old, and he sat there and talked to NBA basketball with me for like 15 minutes, and it was. You're like, this guy doesn't need to spend this time with me, and those were the things I remembered when I was first applying to VSiN. I was like, these are the people I want to work with. These are the type of people that I want to do business with. So that was really what attracted me to VSiN. It wasn't just the content; it was the people too.
How long had VSiN been operating when you went out there in 18? Did they launch that in 17? I lose track of.
Yeah, it was right about a year before. Yep.
So you were already pretty much familiar with the concept and everything else, but it really seems like you were able to get in at the ground floor when they were outside looking in, totally outside looking in, because I probably started listening about 17, 18, right in through there.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. It was new. It was different. And outside looking in, I got the feeling, Kelley, a bunch of guys sitting around saying, what the hell, we can try anything. Let's try this and see if it works. It sounds like you guys had a lot of creative freedom.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that's yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, Ryan. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts from the media background side of things, especially the television production side of things. It was me working in local news and stuff like that for so many years. There was always a box you had to be in a set of rules you had to play by, and there was a way that things had always been done, and that's why you do things that way. And I always hated that thinking. It was always, I wanted to be as creative as possible, wanted to do new and different things and test things out on air. And that's, it was always told those are the things you don't do. Don't test things out on air. Do what you know works. And at VSiN, that was not the case. I knew going in there that nobody had written the playbook for this content before. Nobody's done sports betting content on radio and television at a high level before. That there's anybody that you'd want to copy. So it was every day, and still to this day when I go in every day, it's what can we do that's new, that's different, that's going to be fun, that's going to, it's a lot of throw some crap against the wall and see what sticks, right? You don't really know. And Ryan, you've listened to a lot of shows, and I think Primetime Action's a great example of that. We didn't know what we were doing a lot of nights, and it was let's try this out and see how the audience responds. So yeah, I think it's been 5 years really. My 5 years at VSiN, it still feels that way. And I love that though. There's nobody that can tell me this doesn't work. Don't do that this way. Right. Because nobody really knows those answers yet still.
Stevie, we didn't talk about this before the show because that would require planning and all sorts of logistics that we don't do. But do you remember the first time you were listening to VSiN and what you were thinking about what you were hearing? Because there hadn't been anything like it out there for us.
My first experience was at the South Point. Me being a horse degenerate, I was out there one time, I believe around Derby time, and I was in there betting, and I saw the guys in the glass box, and I was like, "What is this?" Like this was new, and I couldn't really hear what they were saying, but that was like my first like seeing what was going on, and then it intrigued me to listen, and then I thought it was pretty interesting actually because it was like state of the art. It was something new. Like nobody's ever talked about gambling on air like that. They kept gambling hush hush for so many years. It was like taboo. And then all of a sudden when VSiN popped up, that's when the floodgates pretty much open. Now they talk about it on ESPN, Sports Center. They put lines up, and it's all, I think, because of VSiN.
Yeah, Steve, I think that's very complimentary. I think that, I obviously don't want to speak for Brian and Brent. I think for me personally, though, it hit a point with, I did sports talk radio for so long, and you guys know how it can get. You get in debates on air, and it's fun, and you're yelling back and forth. Well, I was a guy who bet, so it always, so many times it would always come to, all right, like we're arguing about this. Let's put some damn money on it. What are we doing here, right? And that was, I think, the first thing for me was, let's take that concept and actually do that, right? If we're going to talk that big about this team or this player or whatever, put some damn money on it, back up what you're talking about, right? And I think there's some of that aspect to what we do that people probably love and appreciate, and I know some people hate. You know what I mean? They don't think that people really are betting what they're betting and stuff like that at VSiN, and it's just not true. What we're talking about is what we're betting, and what we're betting we're talking about for most part on the air. And I think that, that's a separation from what normal sports talk was forever. And to me, it really hit a point with normal sports talk too of it almost felt irresponsible, right? We were in 2015, 2016. How do you talk about an NFL game without bringing up?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it was, what you guys said, it was taboo. We're trying to sweep things under the rug. Well, eventually too much crap piles up under the rug, right? Like it felt like really in that time, I couldn't believe anybody was talking about this stuff without mentioning point spreads anymore. So I think that was, for me, that's kind of when I hit the wall of like, I can't do this anymore. Like I need to find who's doing that talk. I need to join them.
See, this is the advantage of me being significantly older than you guys. I can remember Brent and sitting there with Jimmy the Greek, on the CBS Sunday show, and them going down the little checklist board, and then at the end, the Greek saying, I kind of like the Cowboys by a little bit more than a field goal. Didn't dawn on me until years later. He's freaking giving lines, in the whole look. That was He's doing it for the bettors. The wind's blowing at Soldier Field, 40 miles an hour. Guess what? Under might be all those things that I grew up on that I didn't really realize until later what we were getting a chance to watch. I told you, Kelley, I kind of wanted you to walk us through a little bit of a typical day. I know there's no such thing in this business, but
yeah,
maybe a little behind the scenes for you to get ready, and you and Gil to get ready there for a numbers game, and the time you guys hit the air there in Vegas. What's a normal wake up time for you, and how does the prep go when you get there to South Point?
Yeah, I think it all starts, the next show starts the minute after that day's show ends, right? So it's really, as soon as we end the show, it's starting to prep the next day, and it's starting to discuss, hey, it's still early in the morning. It's 9 a.m. Pacific time when we get off the air. It's starting to project, hey, what do we know we want to talk about tomorrow? What topics therefore what guests might we need to book to discuss those topics. It's a lot of that. And then there's a lot of, hey, it's 9 a.m. in the morning. We have no idea how the hell the rest of this day is going to go. There's only so much we can do right now. So there's that. We always have discussions after the show. And then throughout the day, Gil and I are texting, pretty much 24/7, it feels like, about, kind of stuff we're going to do with the show, add to the show. And, I'll build up kind of a rough rundown for our crew and for, audio ops and everybody like that, and the graphics people and stuff like that. I'll build that up sometime throughout the afternoon, evening, kind of send that out, gives a rough idea of what we're going to tackle the next day. And then I wake up about 4 a.m. Pacific time, get working on stuff, updating any news from the night before, getting everything that we need to recap early, get that all together, get the graphics together, finish the rundown, heading to the South Point about 5:30, 6 a.m. And then we do fire up the show at 7, pre-show meetings and everything like that. And then we fire right up at 7.
And that's not the end of the day for you, though. There's more.
That's just one job. That's just a numbers game. And then whatever podcast I'm doing, if it's Hardwood Handicappers with JVT, doing at my NBA podcast that we do. We were doing 5 days a week. Just got through summer league, so that kind of feels like we're finally just hit the end of the NBA season somehow, and we'll have like 2 months off before it starts again, if that. And then Long Shots, our golf podcast with Matt Brown and Wes Reynolds that we do on Mondays and Tuesdays. So yeah, it's that's my normal week, and then on Saturdays, Live Bet Saturday, I host with JVT from 12 to 4 Pacific time.
You're much more than just an executive producer or a producer, obviously a key component to the shows that you're a part of. But for the people who are only listening that don't get to watch, they probably don't have a concept of how much is going on graphic wise and everything else. How many other guys are you working with? How many voices are in your ear, and how many voices are you talking to? And then all of a sudden Gil's layout, and make you look bad because, of course, you've been doing something else, but there's a lot of wheels turning on your side of the glass.
Yeah, it's interesting because I would say it's like normal. What I try to compare it to for people that work in the business is it's kind of like, remember when they first put Mike and Mike on ESPN? You know what I mean? You'd see the kind of radio on TV, right? And I think that's really how VSiN started, and from there, that's kind of what I always talked about from the visual aspect. We've just been building and building and building really for the past 6 years at VSiN, and getting, we're on YouTube TV now. So the TV product has to be pretty high quality. Ness and all the different other regional networks that we're on as well. We've got to be video quality ready. The DraftKings network that just launched as well. We have a bunch of shows that are on there. So we've got a lot of TV pros. I mean, the staff at VSiN is extremely qualified, vast experiences in both the TV and the radio world. We have some of the best audio people I've ever worked with in the business, but I've got a daily crew. We've got Kevin running our audio board, old radio producer. He's one of the best audio guys I've ever worked with in the business. Then I've got a show director that's downstairs in our control room. That's maybe the most difficult thing, is that almost any TV studio that anybody's going to see on TV, the control room is usually right next to it or near it. So when there's a commercial break, people can always have conversations with each other. With our South Point studio, the only tricky part about it is our South Point studio is right up in the casino, as you guys have both seen it, and our whole control room is downstairs in the basement of the South Point. So we've got myself, Gil, and our audio guy are upstairs. And then I've got my director, my graphics operator, and then an associate producer or two that are all downstairs working on the show. So that's who you're always hearing me communicate with. At any point, there could be 4 different people in my ear talking back and forth. We're all communicating about what's coming up.
When's the last time somebody off the casino floor tried to walk into the studio with you guys? I mean, for those folks who don't know, you're literally that kind of close to the book.
Yeah, Ryan, I think you know that probably better as well as anybody. It happens. we wish it didn't happen as much. It is usually very, very innocent when it happens. But we get people that are in town for bowling tournaments. They run different. I don't think they're real betting options, but I think they're kind of pool options for all the bowlers. So they're not really familiar with the sports book, and they'll kind of stumble to our studio looking to cash a ticket. You'll get stuff like that. It's you've heard the joke off, Ryan. Part of my job is to be a bouncer too. It's not just doing there. I've got my eye sort of on the door, so I usually see when someone's coming in. And if I don't recognize who they are, I'm up and out of that thing pretty dang quick.
Stevie, I'm dominating the conversation. What do you got tonight for our man Kelley?
I was just curious, like, what do y'all like? I know it's got to be tough to find content this time of the year. I mean, I know there's baseball, WNBA, and stuff. Like, how do you guys I guess figure out who you're gonna get on, like, to be guests and stuff when you're on the show? Like, how do y'all determine that? Like, what's the vetting process?
Yeah, I think that I think the thing about sports betting media is that there's not. Don't get me wrong. This is definitely the slowest time of year, and this is a slow time, and it's tougher in some respects because of that. I also think it's easier though that when you work in sports betting versus regular sports talk to fill this time of year, right? There's always something to bet on. People are betting every day. Kind of doesn't matter what it is. It's just, are there certain topics that we're gonna cover more than we would during other times of the year? Sure, right? I mean, Wimbledon, it's basically wall-to-wall coverage with tennis that we're doing, right? We might not be able to squeeze that in if it was football season. Women's World Cup coming up, right? Paul Carr is going to be on a whole lot talking about Women's World Cup. That was going on right at the same time the Men's World Cup just was, and that thing got buried, right? It's going on around football and stuff like that. So, Steve, it's a good question, but I think it's for what we've tried to do, and I know Gil and I have really kind of, held this belief this offseason, was we were going to try to fill as many shows with good stuff that we felt was good quality content before we hit kind of the dog days of summer where we felt the only thing we could talk was college football and NFL coming up. Because I know in years past, me and him have both done summers where it was like, man, we've talked about the NFC East once a week or twice a week for 6 weeks. And you're just exhausted talking about the same thing. And I think that, it's part of our job to bring the same energy every show that we do, but it also makes it a whole lot tougher when you've talked about the same damn thing the 13th, 14th time. So I think that was something that, at least this year, we've really tried to hold ourselves to. And I really think up until this past week or two is really when we started diving hard into college football and NFL. We really made it through most of June and most of July before we had to start doing that.
You talk about booking guests. I've got to think it's probably not easier, but when you first started there, did you have to explain sometimes to potential guests exactly what VSiN is? And, this is a real thing. No, this is not a put on. No, we want you on.
Yeah, absolutely, Ryan. It depends who you're talking to. I think even to this day, it's the same. It's still the same kind of thing. Are we more well known? Sure, we're more well known. But if I talk to let's say an active coach in a sport or something like that we're planning on having on, or an active athlete that I'm trying to get on, I always still give them the disclaimer. Hey, this is who we are. This is what we do. I want you to know that before you agree to come on our air, because we're at the end of the day, we're not just a sports station. We are a sports betting station. That is the conversation that, we might not have directly with that person, might not be the reason we're booking them, but I don't want to lead them blindly into a situation where they end up on our network and they don't even know what our network does. You know what I mean? I think that's, I think that's just part of our responsibility. But it is, Ryan, I think it's especially for the athletes and coaches, I think is where I concern myself more with that. If it's media members, usually they kind of heard of us, or they know how to use Google. So some of them I don't feel like I need to fill them in with too much.
Well, I was kind of thinking about that here this week. The seismic shift we've had in this industry and in the sports betting place in its realm and in college and professional sports, that you've got the Mountain West media days going on, and coaches and administrators that are on set with VSiN, where I can remember covering Texas Tech for decades and walking through the locker room and seeing the big signs, "Don't bet on it," and just this evil, shadowy figure. And now, hey, look where we are. We're all cool. It's okay. Pretty amazing to me.
No, it really is. Yeah, we were talking, JVT and I were talking with Langston Galloway down at Summer League just a couple weeks ago. He's an NBA vet who's kind of been around and, just still trying to crack an NBA roster. That's why he was kind of out at Summer League. We were discussing a lot of that with him. I think even him, he viewed it as a very, like, we were just another media outlet. You know what I mean? We've kind of hit that point where he doesn't have to think about that as much. Hey, it's still, for him, it's, there's a personal benefit. He's got a couple business ties he was able to plug, right? And he still was able to get on air with us and talk about basketball. And hopefully an NBA executive out there might be listening or something. But for him, he didn't view it like it was anything weird. And it was, Jay and I know what questions to ask him and not to ask him. But, one of the things I wanted to ask him was, how much is this stuff talked about? We hear about what the players are warned about in some of these at the college level, and some of the NFL players that have gotten in trouble recently with gambling. I wanted to know, like, how much do you guys hear about the no gambling and don't gamble? He had confirmed, what we keep hearing from everybody in all the leagues, and it's, hey man, they bury us with that stuff, especially at the beginning of the season. It is don't bet, don't be an idiot. So I think he was one who was very aware of what media has changed to, what it's like, but didn't see that as any sort of negative. You know what I mean? And I think that's where we're hopefully getting to a point with, where there's not still negative feelings that get attached to gambling content.
Yeah, it's really, really quite stunning from my perspective to watch the change. And I think VSiN's been at the vanguard of a lot of that, of, hey, classing up the joint just a little bit. I'm intrigued, Kelley. How much of a better bettor are you now after having worked at VSiN? How has that changed how you bet? Other than trying to cram it into a break and, for God's sake, quit spinning.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's a good question. I think that there's there's some things that it's made me. I think it's just spending some time around some of the people that I've spent some time with around here to know how they kind of sharpened their tools and craft and really what they've done. And I think for me, it's probably going to sound funny, but it's probably I'm gambling less. I think it's than probably when I came out here before. And it's really, for me, it's focusing my time more diligently and seriously on the things that I know I bet well, and that those being golf, NBA, and NFL. All of us try to beat the NFL. We all think we can beat it every single year, and every single year at one point it kicks us in the teeth. At one point during the season or another, right? We're all go down that road. But I think it's look, college football. I was college football betting. I probably did that for a dozen years. It kicked my ass probably 70% of the years, and eventually it's wake up, smell the coffee. What the hell are you doing over and over again? So I think it was a lot of that. It was meeting smart bettors and seeing the habits that they have and utilize and stuff like that. So I think that's probably the answer for me, is just it's betting less, or more money, but in less sports, less bets, right. Less smarter situations. Do what you're good at. So I think my answer would be mainly that.
Yeah, information management, I think, becomes key as we learn about this, because you can just get inundated by so much stuff. Trying to figure out what you need to pay attention to is key. Stevie, what do we got before we get out of here tonight? Got anything else?
Oh, no, not really. I mean, we pretty much covered a lot of bases. I mean, I don't really have any other questions. Appreciate your time. Glad you came on. I'll be looking forward. Maybe I'll get to run into you out there.
Yeah, hell yeah. You guys get out of here and buy a beer.
Yeah, I fully expect you to go get me a couple of hot dogs there at South Point while you're out there, Steve.
I've eaten a lot of them over the years.
Maximum three at a time. Okay.
I had Thanksgiving Day 2015. I had at least 4 on Thanksgiving Day. That thing may have kept me alive. At True Story, I was there calling a basketball tournament at South Point over that Thanksgiving weekend, and that little hot dog cart may have saved my life two of those nights, quite literally.
Oh, I've been there, Ryan. Yep, I've been there.
Can't thank you enough. Tell everybody, obviously you've got your Twitter handle there, but if they want to follow you in other aspects or reach out or just got questions for you, maybe just about VSiN and everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. On Twitter, at Kelley Bydlon, Kelley, Bydlon, at Kelley Bydlon. You can hit me up there. My email's on there if you got to reach out to me for anything. But yeah, love talking with people, love connecting with people on Twitter. I think this is always somehow it turns into a community on Twitter, like we're all betting against each other when that's really not the case. We're all sitting at the blackjack table together, all trying to beat the house. So I like having conversations with people about betting, trying to educate some of the newer people, and with some of the more experienced people, we can all learn from each other is always my attitude. So yeah, reach out. I love having betting conversations with anybody about anything.
We appreciate the time and know how busy you are. We look forward to seeing you. Hopefully you'll get a chance to hang out with Stevie over the weekend and whatever else. For Kelley Bydlon and Stevie Shrimp, I'm Ryan Hyatt. We'll see you again soon here on the Sharp Angle Syndicate.